Yo, what's up, boys? How's it going?
Like a dream.
Love to hear it. Let's give it a couple more seconds, probably 1 or 2 minutes for some people to join. But in the meantime, how did you guys trade today? Man, today's narrative just played out to like a T. Fantastic V trade sell off. What was surprising was actually going offer below the 39.71s and then pulling back to it too, like 3 times before selling off some more.
I was a little surprised at how far it went. I kind of thought the CPI number, the CPI number coming out, and then basically creating a wash, and then going
Yeah.
sideways. I was a little surprised at where we failed from. It looked like to me that we would rally into a higher time frame spot before. I expected us to sell off, but just not from there. So I was a little surprised by that.
Mhm. I was expecting the sell off from 4004 and 4012. I just thought it would stop at a 39.71, but seeing it go further was a pleasant surprise, I guess. Okay. Let me open up my OBS recording and real quick. Okay, let me open up my OBS and we'll get started. Left screen. Perfect. Okay, welcome, boys, to tonight's lesson. Tonight, I've got a little bit of a surprise for you. It's a pleasant surprise. I have tonight's KCFT, Kansas City Futures Trader, here with me. And KCFT, we've known each other for a few years. We were originally in a different small, I guess you could say very small, probably private trading group of us just like developing traders at the time.
Yeah.
And KCFT was was really really good at really looking at your process and how you're trading and what you're struggling with and completely breaking that down to the nuts and bolts of like why are you experiencing the problems you're experiencing and what you need to focus on. Now, let me clarify. KCFT is coming in from a perspective, not from a perspective of like, hey, here's, and feel free to like chime in and I'll let you like intro yourself because you can probably say it better than I can. But the main reason I'm bringing KCFT on is because his actual like day job experience is coaching executives, which I didn't know at the time, which is not that surprising because you'll soon see like how well he coaches one of our students here tonight of like how good his coaching skills are and um yeah, I'm just gonna let you intro yourself.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it, Tix. Um, you know, where we got started and kind of the whole genesis of the thing was Ziggy, who's here tonight, put us together. I thought he was. I thought I saw his name. Yeah, there he is. It put us together, and one of the things that, as somebody who was facilitating in that group, trying to help Ziggy keep it going, keep it fresh, help everybody. You know, Ziggy had this thing. You know, give a penny, take a penny. I had this idea that, like, what if we started interviewing traders to just see what we could learn together? And the interesting part about that is that this is kind of what I do in my job. It's my job to interrogate people and figure out what the real story is. And over my life, I've learned that people often, well, this won't sound polite, but they don't tell the truth. And what I mean by that is that they say the thing that sounds vague enough to be true, but not specific enough to really be tested. And it happens all the time. And so we started doing that with interviews, and it just kind of grew into a way to coach people without, I don't know, doing it in a formal way. And then that took me a little bit further in my career. Somewhere along the way, I realized that everything that I had been struggling in with trading was really basically just all down to process. And I just had this eureka moment, and Ziggy was kind of there when it happened about a year ago, where I just realized that everything that I'm good at, all the signals were there all along, that I'm really good at understanding and decoding process. And then when I started to look at trading and I started to do these interviews and I started to think about, well, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to do something I genuinely love, my passion to talk to traders and interview them and get to the root problem, so like so many symptoms can be solved. And this comprehension that I have about process. And every time I've ever interviewed a trader, I've never come across one, not even one time, where the problem was that they followed their process perfectly, but somehow they still weren't very good. Never happened, not even one time. Every time, they have moved away from logic and into intuition and ambiguity. And once that happens, the errors are coming soon after, and sometimes very soon after. So anyways, I appreciate you, Only Ticks, for giving me a chance to kind of help the community here. I love to be involved and participate as much as I can. I do run my own website. I am a trader, and part of that is just a paid service. I'll show it to you when it's all done. But really, this is just me about trying to give back to the community and help you guys get a little bit further ahead. If that leads to something, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's okay. So, is that good?
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for that intro. Yeah, so tonight I'm going to be having KCFT interview Ashton, one of my students who has been showing a lot of promise. Evidently, if you've seen his post from earlier today, like he just caught a banger. I think that was a 30-point trade plus.
Nice.
But yeah, Ashton, do you want to come on the mic and say hello?
How's it going?
Good to meet you,
Hey.
Ashton.
Are you a football fan, real quick? Kansas City.
Yeah. I am a football fan in a certain kind of way. There's no place like Mahomes.
All right. Well, I'm just Broncos fan here.
Okay. Well, you'll get killed. No problem. That's funny. So you Only Takes, you want to just kick right into it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just gonna hand it off to KCFT and let him take the reels.
Cool. About how much time do we have? I've got plenty. So, but how much do you guys have to spend?
Usually these lessons go on for about an hour and a half, but
Okay.
yeah, probably an hour to an hour and a half should be good.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Hey Ashton, so I typically I have like 7 basic starter questions I go through. Did you have a chance to glance at them or no?
I haven't seen them.
No worries. Okay, I'm gonna have to put you on the spot, and that's no big deal because they're easy.
All right.
So here's what for everybody's benefit, what I'm trying to do is just see if we can get an overview, something that'll provide value to everybody as we're going along while we dig into some of the things that we're going to hear tonight. So, Ashton, maybe in a couple of minutes or 4 sentences, whichever comes first, how did you get into trading, and what are you trading today?
So it was like right after my 16th birthday.
Oh
I was
God,
showing some
really?
interest in the stock.
That's cool.
I'm 20 right now. So for my 16th birthday, my dad opened like a joint account for me, so I
Neat.
could like buy and sell some stock on my own. And then I learned about options and proceeded to be a dumbass. And so I took
Yeah,
a little
it
break,
happens.
did some research, and then I figured out about futures about a year ago. And then I've been pretty seriously looking into futures for a little under a year right now.
Very good. Do you have a security that you prefer?
Uh, it's usually been the S&P futures, but lately the Nasdaq has just been moving real nice.
Okay, that's an interesting. Okay, so you piqued my curiosity. Every time I've ever gone from ES to Nasdaq, it's like being on a bullet train, and I've never been on a bullet train, so it's scary. How did you sort of acclimate yourself to that?
Well, lately the S&P, like the volatility's been pretty low in my opinion, and the levels have been sort of sloppy. But the Nasdaq levels have been respected pretty well in my opinion for like the last week or so. So I've been really trying to give more attention to that because as the volatility drops, I think like the Nasdaq will behave more like the S&P will back in like the increased volatility, the prime.
Totally, totally. So what do you like about trading, and maybe what don't you like about it?
Um, I love that I can just make money by doing, I don't know, something fascinating about how the financial markets work and how they move. It's always piqued my curiosity. I mean, been studying them for 4 years. Um, what I don't like, I I don't know. The stress is sort of annoying sometimes, but you just got to push through it.
Hmm. Have you tried? Well, in particular, your most recent work. Have you tried many styles?
Um, about I don't know 6 months before I found this Discord, I was all over the place. I was trying scalping, indicators, price action, swing trading. Finding trying a lot of different stuff. Trying to read the DOM. None of it really worked out until I came here, and then this is where I first started making serious progress.
So, to tell me a little bit about that. When you say that nothing was working for you, and then here you made progress, I want to hear. Treat them both as like separate threads, but nothing was working for you. What did that feel like, or tell us what that was. That must have been hard. So, what were you going through?
Just I'd like have a bad day. I guess I'd see a strategy work. Like I'd be in a Discord and I'd see someone like scalping the Dom, and I'd see that work and I'd be like, holy crap, I guess I got to do that. And then I'd try it and lose my ass, and I'd be like, damn, I feel like shit. Now it's on to the next thing.
Hmm.
And so I kept hopping around. No real system in place, no idea what I was doing. And then once I came here, I was given a solid system and a foundation to go off of, and that really improved my trading tenfold.
Interesting. And what do you? There's when we trade, there's 20 processes with a bunch of sub processes involved with that. Like when you say that got a lot better, what specifically are you referring to?
Focusing on levels that provide high risk to reward, or not high risk to reward, but high reward to the risk. Like finding trades that give asymmetrical RR, because it used to just take any trade anywhere, but with OT's process, I found levels that worked, gave you defined risk, and the system was set up pretty easily to follow, if that makes sense.
So did that having a system allow you to see a path to discipline where before you were just kind of only focusing on the
Yeah, pretty much.
execution?
Yeah.
Hmm. How did you acclimate yourself to that? I mean, that's kind of it can be an elusive process for most people. They feel like that should be the path, but somehow they never get there, or it takes a long time, or once they get there, they can't seem to stay. How did you walk through that notion of, oh, but I'm convinced I really shouldn't break the rules this time? Like how did that happen?
Um, I think it was enough times, like enough paper cuts eventually got the point across. I remember Merritt Black, he was doing like a live stream on YouTube, and he said something that stuck with me. I think someone asked like, how do I get over like taking profits too soon? And he just said it straight across. He's like, do you want to be like, I'm not trying to be rude, but like that's one of the fundamental things that every new trader, like the mistake that you see everyone make and you see everyone mention that they make, and yet no one can like figure it out. And it's like, do you want to be a bad trader forever or mediocre, or do you want to like finally be disciplined enough? OT and I also talked about this a few months ago. I think he said something along the lines of like, people become disciplined when they get tired of their own shit, something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about exactly how it works. Well, I mean, that's good. You started young, and you're so. Are you? I'm going to back up just a little bit. Are you? Are you working a day job and trying to trade in between times on your phone, or how's that working for you?
I was until 3 or 4 months ago that I was working like, I don't know, part-time, 20, 30 hours a week at a PetSmart. But then school was starting back up. So I'm a full-time college student. And so with school starting back up, I needed to really focus on that. So I quit PetSmart and focused completely on trading and school.
Oh, great. Where do you in the context of trading? Where do you seem to struggle, and why do you think that is?
Um, Probably like the psychological aspect of trading. I think my mental can be weak sometimes. That's
Hmm.
probably what I'd say my biggest weakness is right now.
Go further with that. When you say psychological, what does that mean, and how does it feel to be you when that's happening?
So sometimes you'll like, you'll have a bad day and you see others do well. And so
Hmm.
you're like, you just really get like down on yourself. Like, okay, if these guys are making it work, what's wrong with me? And so I've definitely had my fair share of those days. And it's like, what's wrong? And I think I found out that what I do is I tend to take like, maybe I'll take a couple losses early in the session. And then with those like losses fresh in my mind, I start playing scared. And then so like the trade of the day, that runs for 10, 20 R, I'll end up not taking it because I'm too hesitant, too scared to take another loss, and then I see it run without me, and that just spirals further down.
Hmm. So, what has you focused on the wins and the losses?
Um, that's a good question. I don't really have an answer to that one. It's hard taking losses, I guess.
Hmm. We'll bookmark that and we'll come back to it. How do you prepare for the day?
So I live in Alaska, so the market opens at
Oh, golly,
5:30 a.m.
that's
So
awesome.
about
Can we just stop
so
for a second
five
and talk about Alaska? Is it cool there?
I love it. I mean, the city, like I live in Anchorage. The city's not the nicest. Like the cities aren't nice, but once you get out of the cities, it's like beautiful
Not
and
nice,
gorgeous.
like they're not modern. Not nice, like there's bad people there.
All of the above.
Oh,
I
okay.
think like
Wow.
Alaska. I think Alaska has the highest rate of violent crime in the U.S. or something.
Holy
I don't
cow.
know.
That can't. Wow.
Anchorage is. We've got a pretty bad homeless problem. There's a lot of violence, but
People throwing
it's
snowmobiles
not.
at each other. I mean, I don't understand.
There's a lot of theft, that's for sure.
That's crazy. My son wants, just as a brief aside, my son wants to go to uh, Alaska. He wants to drive there and trek up and visit, and it's a big deal. And this is a guy. He's almost 20, and he ran a marathon by himself. He's done 75 hard 3 times in a row. The kid is just a stud. And I say he's a kid, he's a man, but he's 20 years old. It's just I can't, it's freaking
Yeah.
impressive. So I'm fascinated by the topic of Alaska, and it's one of those things. And maybe it's just a little romantic, but anyways, okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Um, so sorry. Back to how do you prepare?
Yeah, so 5 a.m. I'll wake up, let the dog out, open up the charts, and that's when I'll like create my daily plan. Like I used to create it before I'd go to bed at nights, but then I'd like wake up and see all the overnight moves, and then I wouldn't know what to make of it. So I started to just get out of bed at 5, look at the pre-market for about 30 minutes, and then, use the CBT process, like where's the current auction, where's balance at, what's our current trajectory, how'd the overnight move in relation to the BA levels that we're working with in this area, and like what do I expect most out of the day.
Mm-hmm. And and then what?
um just sit down from 5:30 to whenever I have to go to school, and then just trade.
Do you write your plan down? Do you do any visualization?
Yeah, so I don't really make like write down an extensive plan. Every day I do like these daily report cards, and that's where I'll like write down my thoughts in the pre-market. If you go down to trader development, you can see them. And so there you'll see like my plans, and I'll like lay out my thoughts for the current day. And then it has like the day broken up by time slices, and I'll give myself grades. I'll write up my trades. write down my thoughts intraday, that sort of stuff.
And how have you found that helps you?
It's helped me because I realized I was doing that was what helped me realize that my mental was like the weakest part of my trading because I could see myself break it down hour by hour, like how I was feeling, what were my emotions in the trade. So I noticed little stuff like that that helped. I also noticed I like writing down my trades like that throughout the day. It like helped me catch myself some days where I was very obviously tilted.
Right. How do you when you okay, I know where I want to go with this. I just kind of have to develop a little bit more. Um this will sound maybe a little redundant, but it's not. I'm coming at it from a different angle. How do you counteract emotionally reacting to the markets? The market makes a choice about your trades and decides whether or not you're right or wrong. How do you counteract your emotional reaction?
Like, how do I
Well,
like if
you
I take a
mentioned
loss, how do
you
I
write stuff down, and then
yeah.
you became aware that you start to spiral. Um, what you haven't mentioned is how do you mitigate that? What's going on? Before it starts happening, in the middle of it starting to happen, and then it's already happened. So talk about that process.
So, yeah, if I notice early on that I'm wrong and, I can like nowadays like I can sort of sense myself like starting to like get down on myself or something like that, I'll generally take a break. Sometimes I'll just walk away for the day, but sometimes I'll take a break, like I don't know, go work out, maybe clear my head, or I'll play some chess just to calm down, maybe take a I think what's helped a lot is I like to set alerts at price levels away from where we're currently trading, and then I'll just walk away. And if I get an alert, I'll come back with a fresh head.
Hmm. And so it sort of sounds like to me there's nothing really consistent. You're just aware that at some point you might get flushed down the toilet, and you're just trying to figure out any way you can to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I guess that sounds right.
So let's go back to the other point that you made about at some point you'll take a loss early, and then when the right trade shows up, you get skittish. How do you handle, or how have you factored in losses as a part of your trading process?
Um, I used to like hate taking them, like I have to realize that losses come with the territory, and so I used to like just absolutely do everything I could to avoid losses, and so I'd avoid trading in general to avoid the losses. But lately, was doing like my 2023 or 2022 review, and I realized like I'm just playing too scared, too timid. I'm never gonna progress and grow, and that sort of spoke to me. And so now I've like one of my main goals in 2022 is to be able to like remove emotions completely from my trading, and so it's sort of just like brute forcing my way into it. Like I don't know how to
Sort of
just.
sounds like an emotional reaction to emotions,
I
doesn't it?
guess, yeah.
You think that's going to work?
Um, well, so far, I think it has been working for the past couple weeks, but I mean, time will tell. It's still pretty new, I guess.
I guess the question I'm wondering is, and I know I'm asking you a question. It sounds like I've asked you already, but I think there's more detail. What's happening for you? And I mean you specifically. I don't mean trading. I mean you. When you take a loss, what's happening that's causing you to become emotional?
Probably the idea, I probably don't want to be wrong. If I'd have to
Why
sum it
not?
all up, I'd probably say um, it just sits wrong with me. I want to be right when I trade.
What is define right?
I want the trade to win.
Okay. So right means never what? How define that in degrees? Like it's like never being offside?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
If you had to sum it
so
up, I think that
you
would
are
be it.
picking the price where price is going to move in your favor immediately, and then go how far?
Um, well, I mean, that all depends on the area and how big the BA or where we're traversing.
Yeah, I'm just strictly saying for you personally. It's forget the system. Market's gonna do what it's gonna do. But I'm just saying, like, what in your mind is it that is your. Let's put it this way: whatever you think is your reality. Okay, so the problem that most of us have is that our reality is not in equilibrium with the environment we're in, and so the environment slaps us around. And we're like, hey, wait a second, I'm a person, I'm legit. Why are you doing that? So the question I have is, you don't want to take any heat. You want to be on side immediately. There's a lot of people who can do that. And then I'm just asking you, like, mentally, what's part of the assembly of how far do you need to go before you sort of relax and you go, yeah, it did what I was right.
Probably my first scale out. If I can get my first scale out, I think that's when I notice I start to like relax and like some of the risk is off, so to say. So there's no stress.
So
if you
where's
wanna
that?
think about it.
What's the distance between entry and scale?
Depends. Usually it's about 4 times risk, 4R.
4 times risk. Okay. So interesting. I mean, there's a couple of things that we could take apart there. One is that why do you need to be right? Like, why is that so important to you personally?
See, that's a good question. I don't know if I can like answer that.
We got time.
It's hard to.
We got an hour and a half.
Um,
Just go for whatever grabs you immediately. You don't got to think about it. I'm not asking if you got dropped on your head as a baby. That's not what I'm saying.
I think in school, growing up, like throughout elementary, middle, and high school, I think it always came easy to me, and I didn't really have to like work too much at it.
When you say what does it mean? It came easy
Just
to me.
schoolwork in general.
The
like,
work, the grades,
subjects.
the girls,
Yeah.
what?
Pretty much, yeah. The work, the schoolwork, it all was pretty natural to me.
I'm going to go further with that. What does it mean, natural?
I wouldn't have to study, I'd like show up to class, just zone out, and then show up on test day, and I was able to get good grades without putting extra effort into studying.
Hey, what if I said that when you say extra effort, that was just your normal effort? How did you measure extra?
I guess based on like how much my peers would like study.
Mm-hmm. So is it possible they learn differently than you do?
Yeah.
So I think you're an auditory learner. That's my first hypothesis. Would you say that's true? You hear it and then you just basically always remember it?
I'd say that, yeah, it works. That's pretty right on.
Yeah. So your learning style is different than theirs. So it's kind of a false comparison, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe you were putting in all the effort that you needed to. You just weren't putting any more into it than that.
That sounds right.
So then the next question is that how would you rate your performance compared to those people who put in their level of effort compared to you doing the same work? Were you like a C student, but that was okay with you, and they were A students, and you just didn't really care to be an A student?
No, I graduated with honors. I had pretty good grades. There was a couple classes I slacked off in, and that was because I got lazy, but for the most part I maintained 4.0.
Right on. Okay. So there you go. So we can eliminate that. It was a fair comparison. You just have a different style. And probably what you're noticing is you can't learn the markets through hearing.
I wish.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that even has something to do with why I'm walking away and going to an alert has some effect on you, different than the other things. So I want to dig further into that. Okay, let's go back to the winning. So you conflated doing the level of work that you did for school, having a certain result, as meaning that Ashton always wins.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Is it possible that you didn't see what you were losing?
Probably. Like, could you go more into that? Like, what do you exactly mean?
Well,
like,
yeah.
losing
I mean,
grades?
it's just a general thing. It's somewhat intuitive and a little bit ambiguous in the sense that it's relational, but you look at it from the outside, or from the inside rather. You're looking out there at them and saying, "Well, I'm doing less work than them." Do you ever think about the fact that they were looking at you, saying, "Ashton doesn't study and he still gets good grades," and the kind of relationships you might have lost and the opportunities that you didn't get because people didn't like you anymore, or they didn't like that part of you?
Nah, I never thought about it that way.
So, and I know for a fact, in myself, similar. I'm a little bit similar to you, although I wasn't anywhere near honors for different reasons. I suspect I didn't have parents like you did, but same thing. Like biology, I had a 47 in the course and I got an 86 on the final. Why? Because I just heard it and had a good memory. That was it. Didn't need to do tests, didn't need to study, didn't need to do any of that stuff. I just knew it. So that's something that what I'm trying to do by saying all this stuff, and the point I'm going to get to when we move back to the markets here in just a second, is that winning and losing they're just relative terms. They don't mean anything, and you placed your own meaning on it.
Yeah.
Winning to you was putting in the effort that you wanted to get the result that you were pretty much guaranteed to get anyways because of just your chemical makeup. And you never even had a concept of loss because you weren't thinking about it. You didn't have a wide enough perspective.
Gotcha.
So if we go back to trading and you say, all right, what do you think you're really saying when you say I've got to be right or I got to win every time in trading?
I just wasn't used to losing, and so taking losses now doesn't feel right. It feels like, I guess I showed up to trading how I would school. I'd expected to just be able to naturally make it, and I wasn't putting in the effort to. I expected the wins, and when the wins didn't come, it feels like a slap in the face, I guess.
I totally get that. And do you think that has something to do with the fact that money has a value inherent to itself, whereas like education doesn't?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, this is super common for all of us because money, it's here or it's gone, and that spending power is really what it boils down to. So it has a intrinsic value that we place on it. Well, everybody agrees, so I don't know that we even really place it on it, but everybody agrees it has that intrinsic value because it can spend at that denomination level. So
Yeah.
the thing of it is that you haven't considered is that if you relate being offside to a notion of trial or suffering, if you prefer, then you're learning something. Every tick you're offsides, you're learning something. And every tick you're onside, guess what you're learning?
That is just, I don't know.
Go reach for it. I think you already know the answer. Absolutely
right.
Nothing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because it's just working for you. You don't. In some ways,
Yeah.
you could say you don't even know why it's working. You just followed a process that somebody else wrote. A system that you didn't really have to work to do anything other than sort of basically understand, read a textbook. So what did you put into it? And you're already expecting to win. There's nothing wrong with that expectation, provided that's what the system tells you it can do. But does the system tell you it can do that?
No.
Nope.
It's not guaranteed.
No. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. So there you go. So now we've found what the basic dilemma with your psychology is. I don't think it's psychology, man. I don't think that's the issue. It's back to what I said at the very start of the call, which is the problem we all have with all trading and really all things that we struggle with. It's your process. Your process of arriving at what you think is right only leads you to an emotional outburst. And because you've learned self-control over time, writing, which is just a form of mitigation, and just expelling the frustration, and it slows your brain down long enough to so that you're not just sort of wiping out immediately. You're managing, but you're not mitigating, and that's the difference. A lot of times I've heard this topic a 1,000 times from 1,000 different people, and a lot of people who think they're smart about this stuff. And I'm not saying I'm smart about psychology. I'm not trying to say that. Everyone's got their own theories, all the way from Freud to Christianity, and I basically think that somewhere in between the idea that you're either all emotions or you're no emotions, our reality exists in this way. Provided we can stay and process logic, we're going to avoid emotional problems. When we lose logic, that's when the emotional problems are going to come in. But there's not always problems either. Sometimes, like joy, I'm not trying to get too philosophical, but I'm trying to explain why I think processes are so important and why you're engaging in processes without even realizing it. And when you're leaving them without even realizing it, When we're happy, that's an emotion too. That no one would necessarily think that's bad unless you're happy about something bad happening, I guess, right? Or,
Yeah.
the euphoria you feel from heroin, that was also happy, but that's not a good thing. So it all requires context. And I guess the point I'm trying to make and trying to drive towards is the process that you've engaged in allows you to believe that being right is the right thing. So then anything that conflicts with that is going to necessarily produce an emotional response. Well, what if you had a process that said, no, I expect to take 2 losses a day. I expect that. Why do I expect that? Well, first of all, I never know when it's going to happen, and the market is guaranteed to give me a result of what it wants to do, not what I want it to do. So I'm expecting first or second trade, probably going to be wrong because I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything. And I can't expect myself to look at the expectancy of a level, 40% or something like that, or a trade, 60%, or even my historical, and say, this is when it's going to land. So part of my process is preparing for the fact that the market is going to deliver me a result that is going to teach me what it actually wants to do. See how that's that's a form of being right that includes the trial of taking a loss.
Yeah, I've never thought about entering a trade in that way. I don't think I've ever entered a trade fully expecting a loss.
No one does.
Yeah.
No one does. That's why I think it's that's no one does. And that I think is a brief indicator, maybe more than that, but at least a brief indicator that you are probably in intuition at that time rather than logic and rather than process. For example, if you hear any one of my interviews, you're going to hear me bring up this example all the time because I think it just so completely eradicates the competition on what process does over psychological management or journaling or praying to the moon or like I don't know, all the stuff that people come up with. When pilots fly planes, it doesn't matter how many hours they have. The good pilots, 10,000, 50,000 hours, doesn't matter. When a light comes on that they do not expect to see in normal flight, they're going to pull out their flight manual and they're going to flip to the page that says what that means. And the FAA and the avionics division of that plane have designed an exact step-by-step process on what to do, how to diagnose, how to troubleshoot, how to remedy. Everything's planned out. Everything's figured out. Why? Well, first of all, there's a couple of reasons. Pilot couldn't possibly know everything there is to know about that plane. Sometimes they don't always fly the same plane, so they could really actually not know. But let's say you're a Southwest pilot. They all fly the same exact plane. They could have been flying that same exact plane for the last 15 years. They know everything. They know it forward and backwards. Why does that guy do it? Because he knows that no matter how much experience he has, he is prone to emotional error. He will make mistakes. And if he makes a mistake, people die. So he follows the checklist because it saves lives. It's really that simple. When you look at your trading, you're in the same situation. So I'm going to get you to my last question here. And you can say some more things that we'll get a couple more conversation questions going. But if you could wave a wand and make yourself better at any single thing related to trading, what would it be?
Probably trade management.
Okay, let's talk about that. Like, why? What is that? Tell me what trade management means to you.
If trade management, it's like where you're in the trade now, it's like now the big question is where do you exit?
Mm-hmm.
And if I improve my exits, like if I had the crystal ball and I knew where to exit every time, you would never take a loser, right?
Yeah.
So
Very rarely.
I think if trade management was perfect, you could evolve yourself into a perfect trader, so to say.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can be a perfect trader. I don't see any reason why you can't be. It's just a process. So, question for you: what is your trade management process today?
Today, I got rules like don't move stops. I've moved stops to break even only to see me get top ticked and then the real move happened. So, took enough times having that happen to where I learned, okay, you have your stop on a trade, don't move it. I now have rules around my stats, like my MFE stats about where I should scale out,
Mm-hmm.
if this setup on average runs for 40 ticks. Maybe I want to take my first scale out at 40 ticks.
So do you, this is, I may start a firefight here. Your setup is based on a configuration in the market, right?
Yeah.
And, you know it cold, right? You know, here's where I anticipate it, and now it's starting to indicate, and then there it is, it's happened, and here's my execution. Is your execution that clean, or is it more ambiguous than that?
Yeah, it's pretty much that clean.
Okay, so let's say it's that clean. How come all the movement between your entry and your target is also not that clean? Ostensibly, it's doing the same stuff. It doesn't be a kind of a market at a certain place and then just be like something else in the middle, does it?
I guess not.
So how come you don't know? Why isn't there a way to interpret what it's doing that would give you an idea about where scale outs actually matter? Could it be that your process doesn't include studying that? That you're just focused on the entry? And then you're trying to intuitively figure out an exit because, you know, eventually at some point it's going to be over. You just know that's a reality. But where becomes just sort of a guessing game every time. Unless something happens, which I would bet is like it moved quickly away and you like quickly got to 1R or something like that. Right?
Yeah, it's exits are the hard part, that's for sure.
Like I noticed for me in my trading, some of the best trades, it happened today. I shorted the high of day.
Very nice.
And some of the best trades I've noticed about that, when they're the best, they come back and they come back and they come back and they come back, and then they look like they're not going to work, and then they take a dump. Some of the worst trades are the ones that look like they're going to work, like it races away quick, and you're like, yes, I'm beyond my risk, everything's fine, let's move the stop, and then right back at you, and you're out, and then it double taps, and then it's gone again, and you know you missed it. So yeah. I guess what I'm asking is, if your process doesn't account for what the market is doing en route to its destination, how could you ever know what your trade management should be? It would always be random, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty much just intuition. Take your best guess.
Yeah. So how's that working for you when you're taking stops? That's not working so good, is it?
Nope.
So basically we have to design a process for this. And then here's the thing about that. Having the process is just half the battle. Having the swings and the repetitions on that process being effective for you is basically the work of creating a data model. It's the work of just learning by rote experience how things are going to play out, being able to interpret information as it plays out, so that when the market shows you information, let's say you're selling on the wick figuratively, right? You're selling on the top wick, and then the body of the candle as it's developing is taking you to the target. You got to have a way of interpreting those actions in a logical way so that you're not counteracting the move while it's just sort of oscillating around. Or I guess that's what I think, but some people, and I've heard people say it, it's just noise. It's not interpretable. I've heard people say that. I've heard like famous people say that run large communities that I'm no longer part of.
That's pretty common.
Do you believe that? Is that your? I mean, I'm not trying to force my view of the world on you, but is that your view of the world? It's all really random.
To a certain degree, the markets are pretty random, but you through the auction market theory, you can judge who has control.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I think, I mean, from my perspective, you've got a really firm grasp on and I found this to be true. You're usually good at execution, or you're good at trade management. The trade management people are really good risk managers. They're very risk averse. They've got a lot of rules about that. The execution is really pretty sloppy, and they'd end up taking a lot of bad trades. That's usually how it works once you get to a certain level of competency. So, what else, man? Is there anything else we could talk about that's going on for you?
Can I pitch in here?
Oh yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
on the trade management aspect.
Yes, sir.
So, and feel free to take back over whenever, KCFT. but I just wanted to pitch in. So, Ashton, you were mentioning that you were having trouble with trade management, and one of you guys were saying you don't really know where the market is going to go after a trade starts working in your favor. Like, oh, the trade can work out in your favor, like for like 3 points MFE, 5 points MFE, 10 points MFE, 50 points MFE. No one knows. Um, well, I mean, technically, like at least in the way that I teach AMT, like our expectation, at least, or our bias of where the trade is going to go, is the other side of the BA or the other side of the balance area, right?
Yeah,
Ashton.
100%.
Yeah. So between your entry and then between the other side of the balance area, technically, like yeah, we have no fucking idea how the market is gonna get to its destination of the other side of the balance area. And like sure, you can start drawing trend lines, channels. The market could go straight down, down, up, then down. It can go in like fucking circles, then down. Who the fuck knows? Um, what I've done that may help you is if you're not already if you don't already have a data model, as KCFT was saying, on tracking some of these statistics, you should. So for example, how often do we traverse a BA? How often fully, like 50% of the time, 100% of the time, how often do we traverse from beginning of the BA, which is your entry, to the opposite side of the balance area, which is where your exit should be, or at least your last scale should be, or one of your scales. Um, so how much of that BA do we traverse, and how often does it traverse it like 100% of the time, 50% of the time? And is that on any BA? Is that on old BAs, fresh BAs, and new BAs? Like maybe on new BAs, there's a much higher likelihood of traversing the BA from end to end. I think you even took that trade today. I think you traversed a fresh BA, if I'm not mistaken, from like 71 across down to 53s and beyond.
Yeah.
So that would be your trade management, right?
Do you track traversals for like literally any BA touch? Like anytime price goes into a BA for like a fresh pierce, do you track the traversal percentage, or is it only on trades you take?
I do both. It's on trades I take, plus I track like hypothetical trades, and I can filter by hypothetical or trades that I take only. So it's like a fucking data model on trades I took plus hypothetical. And for the hypothetical trades, I try my best to have an even split between hypothetical trades that worked and hypothetical trades that did not work, so as to not bias my sample size.
Yeah. I've been tracking traversal percentage on trades I take, but I haven't really gone back and like checked on trades I didn't take, the hypotheticals.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it could be like easy as a back test. Just make sure you have a column that says hypothetical, because you definitely don't want to mix and match your real trades from your hypothetical hindsight trades.
Gotcha.
So,
So like,
oh, go ahead.
and then last point, and then you can take back over KCFD. So keeping that in mind, the from one end of the balance area is your entry to the opposite end of the balance area is your target. What do you think you struggle with most there? And I'm actually surprised you said trade management was your issue, because based off your screenshot from today, you killed that trade in a good way.
Today I was sweating on that one because there was a couple of times where it would like come back and I wasn't sure if it would go bid, if that would like the low was put in. So it's like trade management, if I could just like be able to, I don't know, just know where it would end, it would be so much easier, but this definitely not an easy game. So my thoughts on that trade, it was I got the first scale out. That was the area I wanted to scale out, so I was happy. And then I wanted when price came back to that area the second time, I wanted to like just get out of the trade, just be done with it. But the short I took in NASDAQ earlier this morning, I got out of that one too early doing the exact same thing. So I like drilled it into my head like, okay, Fade just told you that you have a 40% chance of a new low in the last 30 minutes. You're going to hold until the last 30 minutes and wait for that new low. you're not going to paper hand the trade like you did earlier in the morning.
So do you think your issue with the trade management aspect is not so much as I have no idea where the fuck to get out because my process doesn't tell me to, but rather your process actually does very clearly, very obviously tell you exactly where to get out, but you're just failing to execute that process due to emotions, and you probably have emotions because you're not tracking statistics, or if you are, you're not listening to those statistics because you literally just said 2 seconds ago, Fade said there's a 40% chance or 20% chance of seeing a new low in the last 30 minutes. And that's why on this trade today, you held and that was a successful trade because you listened to your stats instead of your emotions. I'll let you take back over to KCFT.
Yeah, there's a kind of a way to figure this out or think about it or chunk it down, and I want to give you a couple of ideas, and then maybe we could turn it over to see if anybody has any questions or any thoughts from the group. But let me show you something that you know I want to see if I can construct this idea. And I don't know that this will exactly apply to you because I'm going to ask you to interpret what I'm saying and apply it to your model because I want to give you basically a reference metaphor, familiar metaphor. But it's not as though I'm talking about market profile when I say this. So let me bring this up and show you. I'm trying to figure out what button I want to press first. I did that. There we go. There we go. And then can I share my screen? Let me share my screen with you. That's what I needed to do. Am I allowed to do that? Am I able to do that? It doesn't look like I'm able to do that.
Let me see if I can give you the role. You should be able to. Try again.
All right. Oh, yes, I can. There we go. Here we go. Perfect. All right. There we go. All right, let me just do this, my whiteboarding tool. Here you go. All right, so let's say that you're a breakout trader and you got this consolidation area here, and then you got a breakout. Sorry, that looks dumb, doesn't it? And you want to take a breakout trade, but you don't want to take it as it's leaving. You want to take it as it pulls back. Okay, so that's the whole model. You're a breakout trader, and let's say you're pretty good at it. At what point is the trade no longer viable? I'm going to draw a little bit. I want you to interrupt me when you think it's no longer viable.
If you're a breakout trader?
Yep. I'm saying you're a breakout trader, and I want you to tell me when you think this trade is no longer viable. And I'm just going to kind of draw.
I'd say about there is when it's no longer viable.
This is when it's no longer viable.
Failed breakout returns to the consolidation.
Okay. So now, because this is hypothetical, and now when does it become viable again?
Probably when it broke out of that range again.
Okay. All right.
That's pretty hard to judge.
There you go. Now, when does it stop becoming viable again?
Right around the same area.
Okay. And then when does it start becoming viable again?
When it broke out.
Okay. So the reason I do that
range almost with that.
Yeah, right, exactly. But you've seen it happen though. Like it's not like I'm not making something up that's never happened. I mean, this happens all the time. All right. So now, do you use the standard deviation VWAP or do you just use market profile?
I have the VWAP on my chart.
The VWAP.
I don't really use it other than to like filter levels that I'm not too interested in.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not that relevant. Okay. So let's just, now that I know that, the reason I'm bringing this up is that what we're seeing here is an example that process took us this far. It told us that we are a breakout trader, and when we see a breakout, we want to be part of it. And then what we did is we thought that the next step was we're going to apply a target, an entry, a target, and a stop to it, and that's all we had to do. No. Because what we basically said is that between here and here is total freaking ambiguity. if it goes up, it goes down. It doesn't matter what it does. As long as it gets my entry, then the only thing I'm expecting is it's going to go to my target. Not true. Not true. There's so much information in here that we could be using. What the bars look like, how long it took, was it news, the range, the delta, how many rotations, the time frame. All of these things can be defined and built into a data model that suggests to you continuation and then also falsifies it. Why I think this happens is because we're so focused on the entry that we're not really thinking about what's going on in the context between when the trade triggered and then when it started to become viable for us to trade. That distance, that range, that space and time, the market configuration, the delta, all of the particular instrumentation that we use and telemetry that we use to decide that the trade is viable is not measured. It's not thought about. It is not refined. So, like, I'll give you an example. The alternative, there's here one trade that I use regularly does this. I'm looking for a low to go in, a high, a drop, a new high, and a new push, like, or a new push into that high for a specific level, and then my expectation is that it goes right here. I am looking for a specific candle right there. And if it violates that candle, trade's over. Totally wrong. And it doesn't become viable again until it repeats that exercise. And there are other elements. Number one, this has to be off of a support level. If it is not, it can't be just anywhere. It's got to be off of a support level. It has to run a high. It has to break structure. It has to pull back to a place that I expect it to move. It has to, and when it touches this, it has to be sensitive. What does sensitive mean? And I'm going to get back to why defining words is so important. It has to be sensitive, which means that when it comes down and touches it, it wicks right back up. It comes down, touches, wicks right back up. If it doesn't do that, probably I'm wrong. Now, I'm still going to take the trade on the probably that I'm right, but when it violates this, I'm instantly wrong and I jump out. So I can mitigate my risk, and there's a lot of times I can get into a trade like this, and I got a point and a half of risk, and that's it. Why? Because every single step of it is completely defined. Every single thing, including what it's supposed to do. And if it doesn't do that, click, I'm out. Don't need to mess with it to do things that it's not supposed to do. I'm a big should believer. Now, before I hand the mic back to you guys to talk, I said the word sensitive. Let me write it down. Now, how many people have a different definition of mine than the one I gave on the word sensitive? Probably all of you. Another word that I have heard many times is the word context. It's a funny thing that the word context gets misinterpreted. That was like an ironic humor to me. The word context would be misinterpreted or become ambiguous. But it turns out, unless you define what that word means and whether it's the time frame, range, or what data is required to fulfill that context, then you just start using that word, and it's only an intuitive sense of it that you actually have. But for me as a trader, why I broke through and just like everything became suddenly clear was because I understood that process was just a matter of having a definition for a word for every single thing that I expect to happen. That's all it is. I can define everything. And when you do that, you don't have to guess about anything. It doesn't mean you're always going to be right. Market delivers the answer it's going to deliver, but I'm more likely to see that I'm wrong fast. And I'm more likely to build confidence when I'm right because it's consistent. It's the same exact words. It's the same exact sequences every single time. I don't mean the same movements. I don't mean that. I just mean this structure is completely defined. I can see it every single time, and I build confidence in it just like you do with your BA areas and things like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think that's the level you have to get to if you want to handle your trade management and get past those things. I guess one quick thing I'll say is this is the kind of workshop that I do when, if we were to handle your trade management, I'd invite you into a room, and for an hour to an hour and a half, we'd work on trade setups, trade strategy, the plan, or the management. And we would use a jobs to be done framework that says, if I could, resulting in. And here's an example. A couple of traders have done this before. So if we use Mbox to indicate execution preferences, I could monitor the 15-minute ranges and price action from a previous session and look for 2 to 3 setups within the same or better risk as the 2000 tick bars. And that allowed me to take 2 to 3 trades a day and have a better grasp on ideal conditions. This particular trader was struggling with, I get a lot of indications to trade. I'm having a very hard time understanding what ideal conditions are. So I need a way to data model my trade plan inside of what is previously ambiguous to me. So that's the thing I do. You guys can check out my website, and that's kind of all I'm going to say about that. But that's what I do for my fun time and my passion to work on traders. Anybody have any questions they want to ask or interactions with Ashton?
Yeah, so one question I have for you is, after talking about your trade management today, Ashton, what is what steps are you going to take forward starting tomorrow night or next week that is going to help out your trade management that you believe? Is it more reflection on your DRCs, statistics, back testing, etc.?
Statistics for sure. I don't have that many stats yet. I'm still pretty new to tracking them, so I need to do a deep dive on them and analyze, but I also need a larger sample size, so I just got to keep trading for that. Um, yeah, it's hard. I guess I just sort of need to get into the mindset of I'm entering this trade. I fully expect like my stop to get hit. I'm okay if this is a loser. I'm holding to my target, or else it'll be a loser. I need to get okay with that.
Okay. One thing I would say is to be like, if you're not already, to be like cognitive and like very self-aware about like which traversal we're traversing. So is it an old BA that we're traversing, or like a fresh or a new BA? So for example, the BA that we like today was like pretty amazing. We sold off from the BA high of 40.12 all the way down to 39.84. That was a new traversal. So that was high expectancy to see 84, the other side of the BA. And then you got in at 39.71, expecting to see 39.53. And you did an excellent job of holding 2 targets and even beyond. I think you TP'd at 45. So you held beyond what the system tells you the target is, which was a great job. And I can't emphasize enough, like, I'm pretty confident that the only reason you did that is because you're looking at the statistics or listening to the statistics that Fade said, which was there's like some percentage chance of seeing a new low in the last 30 minutes. So I feel like it's like pretty important for you to like internalize, hey, this time, like compare, like what I like to do is when I'm struggling, I compare my losers to my winners. Why the fuck did this winner win? Why the fuck did this loser lose? Let me put them side by side and compare. Is my execution on them different? Did I FOMO that shit? Is my bias right on one and wrong on the other? Or the levels different? How are they different? Is one level newer? Is one level older? Is it the BAs? Is the BA in an awkward spot? Is it because the BA is in the middle of a CA here, but the BA like here is at the edge of a CA? Is that what gave it edge where this trade worked out really well and this trade just like fucking didn't? Like it's always like, and it's always like I'm a very visual fucking learner. That's like my primary way of learning, and that's like maybe that's why it comes naturally to me. Um, but what I like to do is I compare 2 trades a lot, like a textbook winning trade and then a trade that I was just dead wrong on. And it may not come to me immediately, but like later that night, it'll come to me and I'll be like, oh, fuck. I obviously didn't see this, and I have a rule on this that I didn't listen to. So for example, one of those, what I became self-aware of eventually is that when I used to have trouble, and I like sometimes still do, is when I have trouble holding my trades to target, I'm very self-aware of the fact like, hey, the reason why I'm feeling emotions right now is because I'm uncertain of this traversal. I'm uncertain of this traversal because we're probably traversing like an old fucking BA, and it's like fucking Christmas week where we've been balancing that garbage range for a while, and it's like I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. This is not a new BA. There's not a new BA in fucking sight, and that makes you really self-aware because when we do have a new BA, you should have high fucking confidence because you know, like, hey, this BA traversal should work because this is a new BA, whereas the other BA traversal should not work because that's like an old fucking BA. So just like, I guess my point is self-awareness during the trade or during your trade management of like, hey, what traversal are you trying to accomplish? Is it new? Is it old? Do you have stats on it, etc.?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it that way. I've just, you enter a trade and it's just sort of like, okay, opposite side of balance is the end, like the ultimate target. I haven't thought about it in terms of like BA quality yet.
Oh, well, I think that's definitely, if you haven't thought about it in terms of BA quality, I would definitely go rewatch that lesson I did on BA types and BA quality. It was like a very clutch lesson. I don't know why I don't know why I didn't do it fucking sooner, but it's like, yeah, it just goes into emphasis on nuance and why what we do isn't as simple as BA plus the order flow equals print money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any other questions about like any struggles or etc.?
Not off the top of my head. I think we dove in deep today.
Cool. Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions either for Ashton, KCFT, or myself? If so, please, feel free to open the mic or type in the general chat. I'll give you guys a few seconds. And for the group coaching sessions that I do like every Monday or like Tuesday, I guess, since like nobody speaks up in those, I'm thinking like I'll just take advantage of those sessions to do like literally exactly what we just did today. Because like nobody speaks up in those group sessions and nobody brings questions to the group coaching sessions. So I'm just literally going to pick on one of you fuckers and then literally interview you like literally this style. But the difference between my interview and KCFT's interview is KCFT really goes in depth into like what is lacking in your process. And because I'm the one teaching you guys my edge, I'm going to go into this is what you need to fucking do. Because if you want your fills to reflect mine, this is what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a really good and important distinction. I try and be clear to people when I work with them. Although I'm a trader and a pretty good trader, I'm not really trying to teach you how to trade. I don't want to be that. I'm not interested in that. But what I can do and what I'm really good at is taking what you know about trading and exploding it like a manual, like on a machine drawing and an exploded manual, so you can see all the parts and pull them all apart. And you can see where you leave the rails. You can see where you become emotional, where you become intuitive rather than logical. It becomes exposed, the things that you didn't think of, but you should have been and you could. The things that you're overthinking, the things that are you're doing but are non-utilitarian. I talked to a trader yesterday where I happened to see his trade journal, and it's a book. I mean, every day it's a book, and I remember that. And I remember there's all this sage advice. Some of the best traders, their journals read like stories. I hate that advice so freaking bad because it's like, yeah, okay, that's true. You've told me fucking nothing. You've told me absolutely nothing except for to copy somebody I don't know, following a process I don't understand for an objective I'm not familiar with. Congratulations. Wow. So when I talked to him about it, I said, all I asked him was one question. When you review your stuff over time, what is the utility of these big, long journals? And he said, well, and you can imagine like kind of how the conversation went. It's basically like, I don't dig through them. I don't want to. I look at it. It's too long. And I don't, I know I need an insight, but I can't get it out of there. And I was like, well, I have this workshop that could help you create a data model for that so that you can journal in a way that actually makes sense for you, given the things that you're trying to achieve. And in 60 minutes, that's exactly what we did. So that's an example. Did I make him a better trader? Of course I did. But we didn't really have to talk about his edge or, whether he uses market profile or delta. We don't need that stuff because you'll figure that part out. It's the process problems that you're struggling